The forgotten kingdoms lost in time are not merely places on a map that has faded, they are entire worlds that have slipped through the cracks of collective memory. Their stories, once epic tales of triumph and tragedy, are now whispers in the wind, their grandeur reduced to scattered stones being slowly consumed by the earth. This is the story of one such kingdom, a civilization whose name was erased for centuries, waiting beneath the soil to tell its tale. This is the chronicle of the sunken kingdom of Ethelgud. Our journey of rediscovery begins not in a sun-drenched desert or a deep jungle, but in the cold, damp embrace of a peat bog. The Harrow Fens, a vast and misty expanse in northern Europe, have long been a place of silence and secrets. The peat, acidic and anaerobic, is a remarkable preservative, a natural time capsule that can hold objects in a state of suspended animation for millennia. It was here, in the spring of 1987, that a routine archaeological survey, led by the methodical and keen-eyed Dr. Althea Vance, was underway. The team was preparing the site for a regional drainage project, expecting to find perhaps some ancient tools or the remnants of a small Iron Age settlement. They were not prepared for what the fen would yield. The discovery was made by a young student, Liam, whose trowel scraped against something far harder than peat or stone. It was a metallic ring, followed by the unmistakable curve of a blade. With painstaking care, they excavated the object. It was a sword, but unlike any ever documented in the region. It was long and pattern-welded, the steel folded upon itself countless times to create a mesmerizing, watery pattern in the metal. The craftsmanship was exquisite, far surpassing the technology of the known tribes believed to have inhabited the area. But it was the hilt that stole their breath. It was not forged from iron or bronze, but from a dark, smoky glass obsidian, a material not native to anywhere within 1,000 miles. It was carved into the likeness of a coiled serpent, its size set with tiny, flawless amber stones that seemed to hold a flicker of ancient light. The weapon was pristine, untouched by rust, as if it had been laid in the bog only yesterday. Dr. Vance, holding the impossibly light and perfectly balanced sword, knew immediately that their understanding of local history was fundamentally flawed. This was not a local chieftain's blade. This was the artifact of a sophisticated, unknown culture. The sword was the key, but the lock was still hidden. Over the next few weeks, the team uncovered more tantalizing clues. A wooden shield, its leather covering mostly dissolved, but with a central boss made of the same mysterious obsidian. A brooch, shaped like a stylized bird of prey, crafted from silver so pure it shone like moonlight. And then, the most perplexing find of all, a body. The peat had tanned the man's skin to dark leather, preserving his features with eerie clarity. He was tall, with a regal bearing even in death. He wore a tunic of fine, woven wool, and around his neck was a torque of twisted gold. But it was his face that was most striking. His hair, bleached red by the bog acids, was long and intricately braided, and across his cheeks and forehead were tattoos, not the simple swirls of Celtic tribes, but complex geometric patterns and what looked like tiny, stylized stars. He was not a casualty of a small skirmish. He was a person of immense importance, deliberately interred in this sacred, watery grave. Who was he, and what was he doing here, so far from the source of the obsidian that defined his people's artistry? The mystery of the Fen chieftain, as he was dubbed, sent ripples through the archaeological world. The obsidian was the critical clue. Geological analysis traced it to a single, highly specific volcanic flow in a range of mountains now known as the Dragon's Teeth, a remote and treacherous part of Eastern Europe. Previous surveys of the area had noted nothing of significance, but armed with this new purpose, a major expedition was launched. For months, teams scoured the sharp peaks and deep valleys of the Dragon's Teeth. The breakthrough came from a combination of modern technology and old-fashioned intuition. Satellite imagery, analyzing mineral and chlorophyll signatures, revealed unnatural straight lines and geometric shapes hidden beneath the dense forest canopy of a high plateau, accessible only by a narrow, easily defensible pass. When the team, led by a determined Dr. Vance, finally hacked their way through to the plateau, They stood in stunned silence. They had not found a simple settlement or a fort. They had found a city, or rather, the ghost of one. The plateau was vast, and covering it were the foundations of a meticulously planned urban center. Wide streets laid out in a concentric circular pattern radiated from a central acropolis. The outlines of hundreds of buildings, homes, workshops, granaries were visible. The scale was staggering at its height. This city, which they named Ethelgard after a fragment of text later found, could have housed tens of thousands of people. This was not a forgotten village. It was the capital of a forgotten kingdom. The architecture was unique. The buildings were constructed from the local basalt, fitted together with such precision that little mortar was needed. But it was the central citadel that truly spoke of Ethelgard's sophistication. It was built around a natural spring, which had been channeled into an elaborate aqueduct system that ran through the entire city. They had found clay pipes and sluice gates, evidence of advanced hydraulic engineering. This was a people who mastered their environment, who valued order, cleanliness, and public works on a scale that rivaled contemporary Rome. Yet, there was no record of them in Roman histories. It was as if they had existed in a bubble, a powerful and advanced civilization completely isolated from the classical world they paralleled. The next few years of excavation were a process of revelation. Each season peeled back another layer of Ethelgard's story. The city was not just functional, it was beautiful. They uncovered fragments of stunning murals painted with vibrant mineral pigments, ochre, azurite, cinnabar, depicting scenes of daily life. Farmers tending strange, cultivated grains, artisans working obsidian, metal, and glass, astronomers observing the stars from high towers. The Ethelgardians, it seemed, were a society of scholars and artists as well as warriors. They developed a unique form of writing, a script of elegant, angular characters that were found carved into clay tablets and stone monuments. The deciphering of this script became the holy grail of the project. Without it, Ethelgard would remain a silent, beautiful corpse. The Rosetta Stone for Ethelgardian script came from the most dramatic find yet, the Royal Archives. A fire, which would later prove to be a key part of the kingdom's downfall, had carbonized and thus preserved a library of several hundred clay tablets. Among them was a single, crucial tablet. It was a trade manifest, listing goods: obsidian blades, silver, grainer alongside quantities. But this manifest was bilingual. The Ethelgardian script was paired with a known, if rare, dialect of ancient Greek. A merchant from a Black Sea Greek colony had apparently done business with Ethelgard. This single tablet allowed linguists to crack the code. The Forgotten Kingdom began to speak. The translated tablets revealed a society with a rich history and a complex worldview. They called themselves the Ethel, meaning the people of the noble stone, a clear reference to their revered obsidian. Their kingdom, Ethelgard, meant enclosure or home of the noble stone. Their government was a fascinating meritocratic monarchy. The ruler, or Archon, was not merely a hereditary king. The successor was chosen from a royal clan based on a series of rigorous tests of wisdom, physical prowess, and artistic skill. The Ethel believed that to rule, one must embody the balance of the world. Strength without brutality, knowledge without arrogance, creativity without frivolity. The heart of their culture was their relationship with obsidian. To them, it was not just a tool or a weapon, it was a sacred substance. They believed it was a fragment of the night sky, solidified on earth, and that it held the secrets of the stars. Their priests, known as stargazers, used polished obsidian mirrors for divination. Their finest warriors, the Obsidian Guard, were sworn to protect the sacred quarries in the mountains. The tablets spoke of a great covenant between the Ethel and the mountain, a promise to live in harmony with the source of their power and prosperity. For centuries, they did. Ethelgard flourished, trading its exquisite obsidian goods and silverwork with distant cultures for commodities they lacked, like tin and amber. They grew wealthy and powerful, a beacon of civilization in a largely untamed continent. But the tablets also told a darker story, one of creeping pride and impending doom. As Ethelgard's wealth grew, a philosophical schism began to divide its ruling council. A new faction, the expansionists, argued that the Great Covenant was outdated. They believed that Ethelgerd's destiny was not to remain hidden in their mountain fastness, but to expand, to conquer, to build an empire that would rival Rome or Persia. They saw their isolation as a cage, not a protection. The traditionalists, the covenant keepers, warned that such ambition would anger the mountain and break the sacred balance. The debates grew heated. The tablets from this period are filled with ominous prophecies from the stargazers, who reported seeing shadows falling across the stars in their obsidian mirrors. The turning point, the dramatic pivot in Ethelgerd's history, arrived not with a foreign army, but with a natural disaster. The translated archives described it in terrifying detail. It began with a low rumble, a deep-throated groan from the heart of the Dragon's Teeth Mountains. The earth shook for days on end, a constant, unsettling tremor. Then, the skies darkened, not with clouds, but with a thick plume of ash that blotted out the sun. The sacred mountain, the source of their obsidian, their identity, was waking from its long slumber. It was a volcanic eruption. Panic gripped Ethelgerd. The expansionists saw it as a sign to finally abandon the mountain and seek their destiny elsewhere. The Covenant Keepers saw it as divine punishment for the expansionists' hubris. The city descended into chaos. Then, the final cataclysm struck. A series of massive earthquakes shattered the plateau. The sophisticated aqueduct system, the pride of the city, was ruptured. But the worst was yet to come. The earthquakes triggered a catastrophic landslide from the peak directly above the city. The archives stop abruptly, but geological evidence confirms it. A massive wall of rock and mud slid down the mountain, burying the entire eastern half of Ethelgerd in minutes. The death toll was unimaginable. Ethelgerd did not die completely that day. A remnant survived, sheltered in the western part of the city and the deep citadel. But their world was shattered. Their sacred mountain was now a raging volcano, their city was half buried, their water supply was poisoned with ash, and their population was decimated. The survivors, led by a young, untested Archon named Theron, faced an impossible choice: try to rebuild in a cursed and broken land, or flee into a world they knew only through traders' tales. They chose to flee. In a desperate, epic exodus, the last of the Ethel gathered what they could carry as sacred tablets, seeds, tools, and a few precious obsidian relics and abandoned their home. They journeyed west, a band of refugees carrying the ashes of their civilization. Their journey was long and arduous, taking them across rivers and through forests, constantly hunted by famine, disease, and hostile tribes. The story of this exodus became their new epic, passed down orally from generation to generation. This is where the story returns to the Harrow Fens. The Fen chieftain was not a lost traveler. He was the last Archon of the Ethel, or perhaps his chief guardian. The genetic analysis of the bog body later confirmed his origins in the Dragon's Teeth region. After years of wandering, the remnant of the Ethel people had reached the coast, hoping to find a new home or perhaps take to the sea. But they were weak, their numbers too few. They were attacked by a powerful local tribe. The final battle was a massacre. The last Archon, knowing all was lost, performed a final, sacred duty. Following an ancient Ethelgardian tradition for fallen kings, he was given a ritual burial in the bog, a watery grave meant to preserve his body and spirit, to stand as an eternal sentinel for his lost people. His magnificent sword, the symbol of his office, was laid with him. His burial was an act of profound sorrow and finality. The kingdom of Ethelgerd, already a ghost in the mountains, now breathed its last on this foreign soil. Its people scattered, absorbed into other populations, their language and stories fading until nothing was left but a legend of a sunken kingdom in a far-off land. The rediscovery of Ethelgerd forces us to re-evaluate the map of ancient Europe. It was not a vacant wilderness dotted with simple tribes, but a continent of surprising diversity and complexity, where great civilizations could rise and fall without the knowledge of the Mediterranean world. The story of Ethelgerd is a powerful lesson in the fragility of civilization. Their downfall was not caused by a single invader, but by a combination of natural disaster and internal division or warning that resonates across the centuries. Their obsession with the balance of nature, and the consequences of breaking that balance, feels strikingly modern. The greatest mystery that remains is a haunting one. The archives spoke of the heart of the mountain, the most sacred obsidian relic of the Ethel, a single, massive piece of star obsidian said to hold the collective wisdom of their people. It was kept in the innermost sanctum of the citadel. This relic has never been found. Was it buried under hundreds of feet of rock and mud during the landslide? Was it carried away by the survivors and lost during their exodus? Or does it still lie hidden in a sealed chamber, waiting for an archaeologist's trowel to once again reveal its dark, gleaming surface? The final secret of the forgotten kingdom lost in time? The silence of the stones holds the answer, and the wind that whispers through the ruins of the dragon's teeth seems to carry the faint, proud echo of the Ethel, a people who, after centuries of silence, have finally had their story told.